All right, folks, and we are live. I hope. I've got a grand total of 0 listeners right now, so I'll use the opportunity to sort of fill you in on what I'm trying to do here. And the one downside of having 0 viewers is that I have 0 way to figure out if my microphone is working. Well, worst case, I'll delete it. Anyhow, so here's what episode 17.5 of all things all about. The last live cast I did lasted for I think just over 5 hours, which is a bit pushing it. I have a standing desk and I take a drink as we do this, and neither my liver nor my feet can handle it all that well. And also, it's a bit long, right? And it's a bit long. It becomes a bit long then as a full-on video for people to watch. I want to split these things up. I also had a good number of complaints from people who are not in the US. Right, I've got somebody watching. If you could put in a comment whether you can hear me or not, I would really appreciate it. Okay, there are a few people. Excellent. But anyhow, so what happened was that I had a good number of complaints that my normal time for the Q&A session is in the evening in the US. I live in the mountain zone, and that is very uncomfortable for people who are many time zones away in Europe and Russia, but potentially other places, people who work in the evening, that kind of stuff. So I figured that I'll try to sneak in a couple of short. Excellent. So yeah. So I've got a comment from Nick, Mr. Cardshark. Excellent. Midday live stream. Don't people work? Wait, I should be working. Exactly. This is sort of my lunch break. I'm supposed to be working also. I had a good number of complaints from people in different time zones or who work in the evening that they can't attend and they would like to, and they want to be able to ask questions. So I decided to try to do this midday session. I didn't advertise it very much, put it up on Facebook and YouTube, and I want to see if anybody is going to chime in. I'll try to do this a couple of times. And if there is enough interest, I'll persist. And if not, I'll go back to the original schedule, so to speak. The original schedule being doing these every 2 weeks, at least for now, on Thursday nights. Tomorrow I do have one at a regular time, which is 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. And the conversation will be on a couple of things. Tomorrow I want to... Well, Doug is working. There you go. That's a good way to work, Doug. And the conversation tomorrow is going to be on precision scopes, and I want to introduce sort of a newish optics brand. So I'll have a couple of people here with me, Cyclops Joe and Brian from Adgon West. But today is just a Q&A. So I'll basically hang out here for an hour. If there's anything I can answer for you guys in English or in Russian, I will be happy to do so. As I said, the purpose of this is to do a more convenient time for people who are far away, and to be able to hopefully keep the regular live cast a little bit shorter. I don't want the regular live cast to go over 3 hours if I can help it. Last time it was 5 hours, and 5 hours was sort of pushing it. So with that in mind, if you guys have questions, now's the time. In Mother Russia, live stream schedules you. That is absolutely correct. That was my poor attempt at a movie type Russian accent. I'm not good at that. Okay. All right. Since I do not exactly see a stream of questions coming, I will entertain myself by talking about cameras. I switched cameras. Don't know if you guys care about cameras, but I do. I used to develop image sensors and camera systems to some degree. So it's something that's originally is what got me into photography. When I was little, my grandfather was a photographer, and I was photographed too much. So I hated cameras, photography, anything to do with it. As an adult, when I started working with image sensors and cameras, I became interested. Okay. Doug cares about photography. I became interested. In principle, my specific field of expertise is not really classical optics per se, or not optomechanical systems. My field of expertise is electro-optics. That's what I do for a living. And I work with cameras, imaging systems, electronic targeting systems, laser devices, stuff like that. So as far as cameras go, well, I don't know. Doug says Hasselblad and Linholf. Okay. Will this do? Yes, maybe. No. Yeah. So I've tried a lot of different camera systems over the years, and one of the things I found is that I am not a huge fan of dragging large cameras, a million lenses, and stuff like that with me. That kind of thing just annoys me a little bit. Well, that's actually a good question. So let me finish my mini speech, and I'll address that. Okay. Where was I? Yeah. So what happens? What happens is that I'm not a professional photographer. I know a lot about cameras. I'm not a good photographer. I don't like million lenses, packages, and all that sort of stuff. So I've spent many years trying to simplify my kit. From a system camera standpoint, I actually used Micro Four Thirds for the longest time. You're looking right now through a old Micro Four Thirds camera called Zcam A1. It's a Chinese camera company, kind of a small block camera with a Micro Four Thirds mount. For a while, I used Fuji and Nikon. I have some mileage with Canon and Sony and a bunch of others. I kept on trying to find something simpler that would give me this spectacular lens and enough resolution where I can crop, right? It also so happens I don't do telephoto very much, and if I really need to do telephoto, I have spotting scopes and I can hook up a cell phone to a spotting scope and really zoom in. So I tried, for a while, I used a camera called Leica Q, the first generation, and some of the best pictures of my life were taken with that. Then I sold it for a couple of reasons. It was not weather resistant, and I needed a little bit more resolution because it's a fixed 28mm lens and I needed to crop. And then Leica came out with a camera called the Q2, which is what this is, which is a high resolution sensor, the same absolutely amazing lens. And it is now weather resistant. It's not waterproof, but it's weather resistant. And I switched to that, and I sold my Fuji system, and I cut just a little bit, a couple of short, small Micro Four Thirds things for video stuff. And to say that I'm happy would be an understatement of the century. I don't have a million lenses to drag with me. All I have is a camera and a couple of batteries. I started doing videos with this thing. I record audio separately, so it works well for me. I highly recommend it. If you just want to take pictures, not putz around with cameras, I think our fascination with system cameras is a little bit overdone. A high-end point and shoot. This is a full-frame point and shoot, and it's an expensive one, but there are other options. A point and shoot camera with a large enough sensor can do a surprising number of things for general purpose photography. Okay, all right. Alex, can questions be asked via this chat? Yes, please post your question and I will address all questions as they come in. The first question I had was this from Jamie. Why do digital scopes never have optical zoom? Seems like a hole in the market that needs to be filled. Well, for several reasons. I'm looking for, I have a ATN-X slide here somewhere that I'm trying to locate, so I have a prop. I don't know where it is. It's here somewhere. I have a lot of different scopes within arm's reach, and as always, the one that I'm looking for, I do not see. There are a couple of reasons. One is that you have to keep in mind that the whole digital Riflescope thing is sort of latching on to a machine vision industry and stuff like that. And if you want to have a lens with optical zoom that works on a riflescope, you pretty much have to develop one. Okay, but there are other problems with it. The biggest and the most obvious problem is that you have to make this durable enough to withstand recoil. And the vast majority of even marginally acceptable lenses where you have to zoom with the objective, anything marginally affordable is not really designed to withstand recoil and shock and stuff like that. And that becomes a pretty significant problem. On top of it, the requirements with the digital sensor are such that if you do optical zoom, you also have to maintain focus, which is also not so simple, and the lens has to start getting more expensive. Okay, and if you want to use a large-ish sensor, for example, image sensor, and you want to zoom, the lens starts getting huge, and all of it is not really recoil stabilized. It is possible, it is doable, it might happen, but I would be very leery of a device like this. Honestly, I've been playing a little bit with digital riflescopes, and I think they are not quite ready for prime time, although they're getting much better. But the approach that I would be taking would actually be a prime lens and a high resolution image sensor so that you can window, basically crop, to zoom in and zoom out digitally, and that would rely on fairly high quality imaging systems. But the stuff I'm seeing from cell phones right now is good enough, and I can see a couple of good ways to latch onto that, and I'm sure somebody will at some point. And there you go. In the comment, optical zoom also complicates the reticle overlay. Not too much, honestly, because the reticle is electronically generated, and it is electronically generated in the image afterwards. So you can adapt it. If you can adapt it to digital zoom, you can also adapt it to optical zoom. It's not that difficult, but you do need to make sure you have a sensor in the imaging system that tells the processor what zoom you're on, so you can adjust the reticle subtensions and stuff like that. Okay, what else do we have? Oh, there we go. Alex Spills. Where are you from, Alex? I own the Delta Optical HD Striker 4.5 to 30 by 56. I just recently used the illumination. Here I noticed that the reticle LRD1T is not illuminated fully evenly. The right seems to be a little brighter. Is this normal? All right, hold on, let's take a look. All right, here's the scope in question. Yeah, let's see what it does with the illumination. Okay, so I have the LRD. Okay, so Alex is in Germany, in Munich. So I have the LRD1T, and on mine, the only thing that's illuminated is a little center crosshair. So I'm not entirely sure. Are you seeing illumination variances within that, or? Yeah. But anyhow, if you're seeing illumination differences within that little tiny center illuminated area, it is perfectly normal. The way most rifle scopes like this are illuminated, there is one LED that's sitting a little bit to the side. So the light is coming in at an angle, is reflected off of those lens elements, and goes back to your eye through a few lenses, etc. Because the LED sits to one side, it is comparatively common for the illumination to be not terribly uniform. It is usually more visible in designs where the whole reticle, if it's a tree reticle, if the whole tree is illuminated, you see it a little bit more. But you will even see it in a comparatively small area. It's not really a big deal, partly because the illumination needs to be kept fairly low. This is mostly for low light use. Now, there are some designs where they try to compensate for this, and what they do, what they do with that, they put in two LEDs from two sides that are both illuminating the reticle at the same time, at the same symmetric angle, and then you have better uniformity, right? There are a few designs like this. Also, if I remember correctly, in the Striker, there's a single LED illuminator, and it illuminates center cross. Even at full power, you mean at full illumination power? So the way this is called an etch and fill illumination. The way these work, if you turn it on too bright, what's going to happen? There'll be some reflections coming off of the edges of the other parts of the reticle that were not really intended to be illuminated because the light sort of goes everywhere. And you will see these kind of bits and pieces here and there. If you see that, that means the illumination is a little bit too bright for the conditions. Okay. For example, if you have like what I was just doing now, I have the objective lens closed. If I turn on the illumination under these conditions, I will see a few other spots illuminated here and there. That just basically means I turned it on too bright for the conditions. When I go on very low illumination levels, as if hunting at night, the only thing that's illuminated is this little center cross, nothing else. That's what it was designed for. Okay. You're very welcome, Alex. I mean, that's what this is for. The second generation SIG BDX scopes are starting to be available. The prices seem reasonable, and the 6x zoom range seems like it would be more versatile than generation 1. Buy or wait for third generation? I have no idea. I have not seen the second gen BDX yet. I would like to, but my schedule is kind of tight. I will probably maybe later in the summer I will look at it. The way my year is shaping up, one of the big reasons I moved to New Mexico originally was that I wanted to hunt more. So I've got a sheep hunt in 2 weeks with a new scope, by the way, that's not been released yet. So I'm very excited about it. As soon as it's officially released, I'll post up a video and a couple articles on it. It's a really nice design. And then in June, I'm going to go to Alaska, do some black bear hunting and some fishing and stuff like that. Once those two are done, I'm hoping to have a little bit more time for some new scopes. As is, my plate is a little bit full, and SIG BDX is on the list of things I want to look at. But until I look at this Gen 2 version, I really can't tell you for sure whether it will, whether you should go for that or wait. I don't know. For what it's worth, the 6x zoom range does not really do all that much for me. For me personally, I want to see how they did the reticle, how they're illuminating the hold points, and things like that. I'm generally very interested in what shape all these different types of electro-optical integration is going to take. I've been messing quite a lot with the Riflescope and with Steiner IFS and with things like that. And tomorrow we'll talk about a Russian scope company called DLO. They have a scope that also kind of does what Revik does. I really want to look at that one. It's supposed to work to the Strelok app, which is interesting to me. And SIG BDX is also a sort of a path toward electro-optical integration, and I'm very curious to see how it's going to work. I'm looking for a crossover 8x scope and stuck on a March F or Night Force NX8. Do you recommend one over the other? Yes. I like Night Force attacker scopes, and I don't really like the NX8. I don't think it's a very good design. I think it looks much better on paper than it does in real life. Night Force attackers are excellent. If you're looking for a lightweight scope with an 8x reactor, go with March. And just so that we're all clear that I practice what I preach, here is the here's the March 3 to 24 by 52. I use the scope. I use it all the time. I had it side by side with an X8, and I think this is a substantially better scope. All of these lightweight, higher reactor ratio scopes will have some limitations in terms of depth of field and stuff like that. March has been doing this type of a scope longer than Night Force, and they do it better. Okay. That's basically that. If you do decide to go with the NX8, it is cheaper, which makes a difference. To my eyes, the 4 to 32 by 50 was substantially better than a 2.5 to 20 by 50. I did not like 2.5 to 20 at all. You're very welcome. All right. Where was I? Okay. Where was I? Unless more stuff comes in, I can keep talking about cameras. So what do I use for cameras? What am I converging on after experimenting with it for quite a long time? For my general purpose, so what kind of photography do I do, right? So I take pictures of my kids, I take pictures of my guns, I occasionally do a landscape or two. I enjoy that kind of stuff. Let me see if I can pull up the types of things I like. And it so happens that none of those really require a huge amount of telephoto, right? So I don't. I'm just opening Capture One. So I don't really have a huge need for telephoto. And I was trying to figure out how to set myself up with the best possible camera system for that. That would also be fairly compact. The sort of standard way of doing this is to get it used to be a DSLR, now it would be a mirrorless camera with a 24 to 70 or 24 to 100, 28 to 100, 105, 24 to 120, something like that lens. Okay, I've got another question, so I'll go back to the cameras in a little bit. Okay, so Alex, coming back to the Delta, can one expect notable superiority of the colorless K525i compared to the Delta when shooting at 1,000 meters? At least it is double the cost. It's not such a simple question. What is noticeable superiority? Colorless is a better scope overall. Whether it's worth the money is arguable, right? So colorless people dislike me simply because I didn't like the K2525. But where I did not like it too much, I thought optically it was closer to $2,000 scopes than $3,000-$4,000 ones. I did this comparison called high-end tactical, and the last installment had a colorless in it. And since then, colorless people don't talk to me. They sort of took it personally. Optically, colorless is a little bit better than the Striker, but not by much. To be fair, colorless has a new version of the K525 called DLR, something like that. It's a wider field of view version. I haven't seen that one, right? So I can only talk about the original K525. And optically, I just didn't like that scope. It got shallow depth of field, narrow field of view, significant black ring around the image and the eyepiece. It just optically it was not great, but mechanically it is great. So it really depends on what's important for you and how you run it. It had K525 is mechanically a nicer feeling scope than the Striker. But optically, there is a little bit of difference, but you're not going to see all that much. Optically, I don't think colors is worth the extra money over the Striker. Mechanically, maybe. That having been said, I've had the Striker for a long time. It has tracked perfectly. I've seen more than one, and I would not hesitate to go with it. But the way my recommendations have been going lately is the $1,500 to $2,000 scopes have gotten so good right now that it's very difficult for me to recommend most $2,500, $3,000 ones because I'm not convinced they're better. To have a significant step up over something like the Striker or similar designs, you pretty much have to go to the very top end to the Tension Theta, Zero Compromise, Schmidt scopes like that. The one kind of interesting quirk in there is here somewhere as well. Oh, there we go. Is this guy. This is the Leica PRS, which mechanically is actually related to the Striker, although turrets are redesigned. But optically, Leica did something to it where it is better and maybe actually worth the money. I didn't like the PRB reticle. I like the ballistic reticle. This is one of the scopes I'm going to talk about tomorrow. And it's kind of under 3,000. And if you're looking in that $3,000 range, honestly, I'd probably take the Leica PRS over the colors, right? But whether it's worth the money over the Striker is really unclear to me. If you really want a significant step up in both optics and mechanics, you'll need to spend the money for the Schmidt or Tension Theta, something like that. Okay. Have you been able to use the new March 1 to 10 shorty? Any thoughts on that versus Vortex 1 to 10 Gen 3? Yes, I've spent a lot of time with the 1 to 10 shorty. I finally sent it out a week or so ago. Spent several months with it, and I do have a Vortex Razor Gen 3 1 to 10. They're both good scopes. They both do good things. The shorty is light and compact, and I like the dual focal plane reticle. Whether the price difference of the March over the Razor Gen 3 matters to you really depends on how you use it. So the March is done well, and it's all March scopes are done well. Mechanically, it's good. Optically, it's good. It's a very nice scope. And with the dual focal plane, the illumination is pretty bright enough. And I timed them on one power going one to another. Razor does have a wider field of view, but March is easy enough to get behind. There wasn't really any sort of significant difference in terms of split times and stuff like that. Where March has a little bit of an advantage is past 800-900 yards, where the adjustable parallax of the March gives it an edge. Vortex basically starts running out at the depth of field. So what I did with my Vortex Razor Gen 3, I went to Vortex. I need to visit them for other reasons anyway. And I had them reset the parallax on my Razor Gen 3 from the regular 150 yards to 300 yards. And what that does, it makes it on 10 power, on high magnifications, it makes it not perfect at closer distances inside of 100 yards. But this is not a bench rest scope. That's not where I use it. But it makes it much better at long range. And as far as the reticles go, for the time being, things may be changing. For the time being, the reticle in the Razor Gen 3, I have the EBR9 mil red version, agrees better with me than the current reticle in the March. Why? Because with scopes like this, I don't like to dial unless I have to. And I prefer to use the reticle for both elevation and wind holds. And the reticle in the Razor Gen 3 basically works better for the way that I shoot. March, because of the reticle, the DR1 reticle that I currently use, March basically does not have wind holes in the reticle. So to use March at any distance where I need to really worry about wind, I have to dial. And this is not something I like doing with low power variable scopes. Okay, I hope that makes sense. But basically, for now, my general purpose recommendation for 1 to 10 low power variable is still the Razor Gen 3. Unless your application requires an adjustable sight focus, then March is absolutely an excellent option. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just that the reticle is not ideal for me. Okay. Alex, I'm shooting static long range, such as long shot in Poland on Tikka Tactical 308, so I guess to stick to it. Guess good value for the money, but we'll have a look at the Leica. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable. That's a pretty reasonable summary. It's for the money. It's very hard to do better than the current crop of $1,500 to $2,000 scopes, which are the Strikers, the Vortex Razor Gen 2, the Athlon Chronos Gen 2, and a few others. Tracked Toric ELR. So there are several scopes like this. It is really impressive. They're full featured. They're very nicely made, and it's pretty impressive what you can get for the money right now. Okay. So while I'm waiting for more questions, I'll go back to my camera thing. So because I don't do telephoto very much, I basically switched to a fixed lens camera. This has a 28mm lens, nice full frame 35mm sensor, has good manual focus, good autofocus. I can do macro with it, although it's kind of a wide angle macro, but it works. Can always crop. And I have not really looked back. For system camera, I'm maintaining Micro Four Thirds with a small number of lenses, and the reason why I'm maintaining Micro Four Thirds is that the lenses are small. For example, this is the lens you're looking at me through right now is a 15mm, which is 30mm equivalent. This is a 45mm f1.8, 90mm equivalent. I have a couple others. So my telephoto kit with Micro Four Thirds becomes really, really compact. And the limitations of Micro Four Thirds and low light and all that are adequately covered by the large and very good on low light full frame Leica. The one thing that was not covered in my collection was something that's truly waterproof that I can go underwater with, things like that. Normally that would be a conventional action camera like the GoPro and things like that, but it's not my thing because the ultra wide angle of something like a GoPro really doesn't do anything for me. So for that, I have this guy. This is a Sony RX0 Mark II, and it is, can you see it well? Yeah, well enough. And this particular one is in a small rig cage. I use it for my overhead shots, but I can also go swimming with it if I go on vacation with the kids. It's just, this is a larger image sensor than a typical action cam, so it gives me a pretty respectable image quality, high-speed imagery. I can dive with it down to 10 meters. But there is a cover on the back. Let's see if you can see it. It's right here. Okay. So I can run it as a webcam using micro USB. There's micro HDMI out. So when occasionally you see me do these overhead shots when I'm looking down something, it's with this camera suspended over the desk. And I can have HDMI out and I can have microphone in. So a remarkably full-featured camera for something this small. And it is, if I need to go do something in the rain, that's the one I take for obvious reasons. User interface is very clunky, but for what I need, it's good enough. So for all practical purposes, I barely ever have to switch lenses right now. Instead, I have a couple of cameras with me, and when I go to the range, it's usually the Leica and the tiny Sony, and that's basically all I need. Every once in a while, I want to take a picture of the moon. I need something else, but Cell phones are getting so good that cell phone with a spotter can take care of telephoto for me very nicely. Okay. All right, we are 34 minutes in. If you guys have other questions on anything that I normally cover, Riflescopes, binoculars, spotters, etc., do let me know. I am planning to talk a little bit more about binoculars as we go along. I don't have it near me. A binocular that I have been really looking at for a little while, and really like, has been the Delta Optical 9x45 laser range finding binocular. The way my personal needs go, I'm looking very, very carefully at binoculars that have the laser rangefinder functionality built in, and I really like the Delta. But I'm also beginning the test. Just got it of the Vortex's new Fury HD with the applied ballistics thing. So the plan is to see how well this sucker works and to hook it up to my watch. I got this Garmin Delta Tactics something solar. I think basically it's a watch that has the applied ballistics engine calculator in it, so that I can have the watch talk to the laser rangefinder / binocular and calculate the distances for me. And it's actually working fairly well so far. But one of the things I wanted to look at was what kind of image quality degradation am I going to get by having laser rangefinder in the binocular. And up to now, I haven't really looked at any marginally affordable LRF binoculars. The only LRF binocular that I've spent any significant amount of time with it was a $3,000 Leica HDB a few years ago, which was remarkable, but remarkably expensive, and I wasn't going to spend that kind of money, though I probably should consider it. And so yeah, Jamie has those. The Vortex series edges are not so great. I agree with you. The edges are not so great. So what I did is I also got a non-LRF binocular, which is in broadly the same price range, or it's a little more expensive. This is a Vortex Razor UHD. And I gotta say that in terms of image quality, there is no comparison. The Razor is much better than the Fury 5000, but it doesn't have the functionality, so I'll keep looking at it and trying to figure out how I want to go about this. And the Fury is good enough. I'm also going to compare the Fury to the Delta 9x45, slightly different magnification. The Fury is 10 power, Delta is 9. But it, at least I can compare how well the laser rangefinders work and stuff like that. Okay. Also, Alex, any recommendation for a spotting scope in the US $1,500 range? Would you recommend a scope with reticle or without? Well, so the reticle is an interesting question, right? I am a shooter. Excuse me. I'm not a birder. I have been actively changing all my spotters. I actually sold off all my spotters without reticles, and I'm actively trying to figure out what I'm going to do with reticled spotters. And there are some new designs coming that look to be very promising, but for my personal use, I'm switching only to spotting scopes that do have reticles in them. Now, there are a couple of spotters I have that I can't easily sell because they're prototypes and that kind of stuff. So I do have a spotter that does not have a reticle in it. It's very similar to the Athlon Ares G2 or something like that spotter, which I like quite a bit. That was comparatively an expensive spotter, and if I need to hook up a phone to something for digiscoping, that's what I use. For other users, I will only have a spotter with a reticle. In terms of what you can get under 1,500 US, it is a tough call. So the spotter that I've spent the most time with the reticle eyepiece was that's sort of close to that price range is the Vortex razor. It has a fixed, the 80 millimeter, the larger razor, has a fixed power reticle eyepiece available for it, and it was really good. If I was shopping in the $1,500 range, I would probably lean toward the razor with a fixed power reticle eyepiece. That having been said, the spotter that I use the most is a little bit cheaper and smaller. I use the field spotter from Athlon called the Chronos Tactical, which which goes from 7 to 42 power, and it has a reticle in it, a milliradian type reticle. Optically, it's not as good as the more conventional scopes, but it's good enough for my purposes. And on low power, it is comparatively easy for me to use it handheld off of the bag, something like that. I'm really itching to see what further development we will have with spotting scopes that have reticles that are not fixed power, that have zoom magnification. In spotting scopes, there is a lot of value in zooming in and out. The best is still the hand-sold, but it's a lot of money. The hand-sold spotter 60, spotter 45 are just wonderful. There are a couple of things coming out that will go after that at a lower price, but they're not officially out yet. With fixed power, there is a new Athlon RS that looks promising, but I need to test it. It should be here soon enough. So we will see. As of right now, if I was looking in the $1,500 range, I'd look for a deal on a Vortex razor with a fixed power reticle eyepiece. Let's see. There we go. I went with a SIG BDX Binocular LRF with a Kestrel 5700 Sportsman, and I tried the first gen scope, so it has all the integration with range, ballistic calculations, and weather, all talking to the scope. Yeah, I mean, as I said, all this electro-optical integration is very interesting. I am dubious of how much stuff I want to carry with myself, carry with me into the field. Basically LRF and a Riflescope, that kind of makes sense to me. But if I need the binocular and a separate laser rangefinder and a wind meter and all that, that gets tricky. If I can combine the laser rangefinder into a binocular without sacrificing too much, that's obviously the way to go for me, to combine two devices into one. For wind, there isn't really a currently available solution for civilians that's better than a Kestrel. But for example, David Tubb, for his DTR reticle, depending on where you are, but the app on the cell phone pulls weather information from local weather stations, something like that. It actually works pretty well and gets you pretty close. And you still, just like with a Kestrel, you still have to look at things and try to figure out what's happening and adjust the best you can. So yeah, it works, but I think it's all for now just a little bit clunky, but it's getting there. It's clearly improving. Let's see. What do I have here? I was going to show you a picture of the type of stuff I like to photograph. And now I need to find the right shot and make sure it's properly edited and all that sort of stuff. I do not see it. Let's see, maybe stuff like this. I'm fortunate to live in a very pretty part of the country where I am close to the Sandia Peak up in the mountains here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience. You're very welcome, Alex. That's why I do this. I enjoy the interaction, so keep the questions coming. In the meantime, this is the kind of stuff that I like to do. I'm gonna share my screen with you so that you can see this is my photo. It's not a processed image yet, but this is the kind of stuff that I like. Okay, it's a picture taken from the top of the Sandia Peak. Now, if you zoom out all the way, you see more. There was, as of a week ago, there was still snow up there. It's about a 10,000 foot tall mountain next to Albuquerque, which is about 5,500 foot. That's where I live, and there are a lot of opportunities to see something pretty, and I don't really need telephoto cameras to be up there. Okay, so that showed you. All right, we are 45 minutes in, 46 minutes in, so we'll have about 15 minutes left. You guys have anything else you want me to cover? I will be happy to do so. Or I can bullshit more about cameras, you tell me. All right, bullshit about cameras it is. Where was I? Yeah, let's talk about Leica. So, with all of the great cameras available to us, why would I do this? It is $5,000. Each battery is $175, right? If you want to spare a battery, it's $275. And you can't even swap out that lens. Right? Okay, I do have a question. Have you tested a SIG Kilo 3000? Honestly, I have not. I do have a SIG Kilo, but an older one, the 2400 ABS. And it worked very well. I have no reason to suspect that the Kilo 3000 does not work well enough. Does not work well enough. From what I know of it, it's perfectly respectable. SIG does electro-optic integration pretty well. But how good it is optically, I don't know. This is it's the type of thing that I probably need to look at some point sooner than later. Prone Wolf. Thank you, sir, for your kind words. Would it be possible these days to make a fixed 12x smaller than a Vortex 1 to 10? Yeah, it is possible. Now, there will be some limitations involved with making it small, right? If you make the objective lens small, then if you make the objective lens small, then exit pupil becomes small. If you get objective lens larger without increasing length, depth of field is going to become a little bit shallow, but it's definitely possible. As an example, once again, it's on a rifle, I don't have it here. I'm going to pull up an image of a scope that I have. It's a US Optics TS12X. It's a Chinese manufactured, but QC done in the US. Compact scope. It's a 3 to 12 by 44 design that in terms of length, it's about same length as the Razor 1 to 10, or very, very close to it. I'm looking for specs. It's 18 ounces and 9.6 inches in length. I'm gonna once again share my screen so you guys can see. Okay, so this scope is about same length as the Razor Gen 3 1 to 10. It weighs about 2 pounds, 2 ounces less. It does not have illumination, although it's possible to add illumination in a scope this size. And the magnification ranges from 3 to 12 by 44. So if it's possible to make a variable magnification scope in this size, it's definitely possible to make a fixed power one. The big question is whether there is a market for it or not, right? So, and that question I can't really answer for you. My initial guess would be probably not, because here's the catch: you have to design this, you have to spend money. In what quantities are you going to sell them? Are you going to sell enough to justify that? Are people going to pay enough for a fixed power scope in the current market where the variables really dominate? I really don't know. I doubt it, but I don't know for sure. Okay. All right, let's see. Hi, what sub 1,000 pound scope would you recommend as in best glass and turrets? So the basic problem here is that I have not the foggiest idea of what 1,000 pounds gets you in terms of optics in Great Britain. I live in the US and the prices here are different. We really don't know. If we assume it's I don't know, $1,500 or thereabouts, I would be really looking at Element Nexus 5 to 20 by 50. If you assuming you're talking about tactical type, precision type front focal plane scopes, that would be probably at the top of my list. There's this new scope I'm testing that has not been announced yet, which I think will be the one to beat in that category. It should be under 1,500. Don't know for sure, and can't talk about the details or which scope it is yet. But once they announce it, I'll bring it up. I think that one will do really well. If it's a general purpose scope for general hunting, honestly, for $1,000, you can get a Vortex Razor HDLHT 3 to 15 by 42, 3 to 15 by 50. The second focal plane, they're really good general purpose scopes. I've seen nothing to suggest that for a conventional second focal plane scope, there's anything under 1,500 that can beat these, at least not that I've seen. So these are very good. If you want very high magnification, look at Citron S3 scopes, like 8 to 32 by 56. That's very good. But that's roughly it. If you tell me more about the specific application, specific scope type, I mean, then I may be able to offer more recommendations. But as is, there's really not enough specificity in the question. Okay, so Abirdo has the Kilo 3000. And here's it's very comparable to that Vortex I just got. I would not be surprised if it's the same OEM. There are not that many OEMs who do this. Okay. But I've never had top tier binoculars. Top tier binoculars still better, and the high end Leica HDB, the LRF with binocular was much better than the Fury or the Delta, but double the price. I don't know. Okay, from Prone Wolf. As these days I find with an LPVO with a red dot, I always have my LPVO turned at max. Look, if you are using your LPVO always turned at max, you are not spending your money wisely. If you do not use the one power over the low power variable, you do not need a low power variable, right? I mean, you need something like, oh yeah, there you go. So here's what I very commonly use and actually like a lot, right? This is a SWFA ultralight, 2.5 to 10 by 32 with a BDC reticle, and a little red dot on top. This one I piggyback, but you can do offset, whatever else. Because on one power I use the red dot, I do not need one power here. This scope weighs less than 10 ounces. This whole combination with rings and everything is about 15 ounces, I think, less than any 1 to 10 or 1 to 8 good quality LPVO. It works really well for me. As a general purpose AR-15 scope, I still prefer the Razor 1 to 10, but I use it on one power a lot, right? And the auxiliary sights I have on the 1 to 10. I can't show it to you. It's on a gun. If I show a gun, YouTube kills the live cast, right? Okay. So it's if you're not using one power, don't spend your money on a low power variable. Get a medium range variable scope. I like the lightweight ones, like the Vortex, the SWFA Ultralight, but you can do it with anything. For years, I used the SWFA 329x42 that way. I have a fixed 10 power also from SWFA that I've used with the red dot as sort of a poor man's 1 to 10, if you wish. If you can get better quality on 10 power with larger scopes than you can with an LPVO without sacrificing weight. If you don't use 1 power, you don't in a scope, don't pay for it. I mean, it's just a waste of money. Okay. Greetings. Any comments on the Arcan SH4 Gen 2? Seems like very popular. None whatsoever. I've never tested any of the Arcan scopes. They seem to be difficult to get, and I'm pretty busy. Maybe towards summer I'll reach out to these guys and see what they have. I looked at the EP4 series at SHOT Show, and I thought they were quite nice, but until I test Arcan scopes, there isn't really anything I can say on the subject. Okay, you're very welcome, Mr. Wolf. Richard, hope you're doing well. I'm right by the Foothills Tramway in Indian School. Yeah, Richard, I think you live about 10 minutes away from where I am. We should get together sometime. Shoot me if you want. Richard, shoot me an email when you have a chance. It's swag@darklordofoptics.com. Maybe we'll find a way to meet. Okay. Okay, running a Razer LHT 3 to 15, but it is a little bulky. Yes, it is a little bulky, but you have to keep in mind the Razer HD LHT 3 to 15 weighs about the same as the Vortex Razer 1 to 10 by 24, despite having a 42 or 50 millimeter objective, right? That weight is a consequence of having to have 1 power. 1 power in a scope is hard to do. Okay, so keep that in mind. I like that 2.5 you have, and the March 1.5 to 15 looks very interesting. Thanks again. I've spent quite a lot of time with the March 1.5 to 15, and it is very, very nice. But it's not any lighter, excuse me, than the 3 to 15 Razer HD LHT. And here's a question, right? March 1.5 to 15 might be the most flexible, general purpose hunting scope out there right now, or hunting a tactical if you're okay with second focal plane, stuff like that. But here's a catch: you're paying a lot of money for it to go down to 1.5. Do you need it? If you do, there's nothing better. But if you don't, you can save some money by using a 3 to 15 or 3 to 12 or something like that. And if for low power, you're still just using an offset red dot. I don't really have a good answer for you here, right? But what I'm telling you is you need to go think about your application, do a little bit of soul searching, and figure out where your money is best spent. For example, that US Optics 3 to 12 by 44, I have it set up with an offset non-magnified sight, and it works really nicely, surprisingly so. The best combination I've seen to date is still the ultralight SWFA. It's not as good optical as the March, not close, right? But it's $350 and it's less than 10 ounces. That makes a difference for me. Any initial thoughts about March 4.5 to 28 optically? Looking forward to your full review if you're planning one. I am planning one. I want to get it with the one I have is still a pre-production version. I'm going to get a production version before I do a full review. My initial impressions are extremely positive. It's a very nice scope. As an overall package, I don't think there's anything necessarily better on the market just because of what you get and compared to the moderate weight and all that. Is it going to replace my Tangent Tatum? Maybe not. Not for a heavy precision scope. But as it might be the best crossover scope out there right now because it's 30 ounces, which is not that much for a crossover design. Wide field of view, really, really good optics, especially in the center. Excellent turrets. I think March will do really, really well with that scope. Thanks for your input. I've been looking at the Nexus, but might wait to see what you have up your sleeve that might be better. I don't know if it's better. I'll know soon enough. But it's probably going to be lighter, which for me makes a big difference. Stay tuned. As soon as I can talk about it, I will. Brandon Shaw. I shoot ELR out 2800 meters. I currently run night force, colors, and Valdada scopes. Is the zero comp up to the reviews I'm seeing, hearing? Look, I don't know what reviews you're seeing or hearing, right? So I tested 2 zero compromise scopes, and I thought they were excellent. If I were to pick 2 designs that I think are the best general purpose long-range precision scopes right now, honestly, I mean, I think it's between Tangent Theater, Zero Compromise, and these new March designs. So like this is the 5 to 42 by 56 that I'm wrapping up with, and the March 4.5 to 28 by 52 that somebody just asked me about, right? Schmidt is very, very good, but honestly, with Schmidt, I still like the 5 to 25 the most. The new scopes are very good, but I like the old one more. Zero Compromise is excellent. If you like the turrets and they work for you, it's an excellent eyepiece. The turrets are good. If you like the reticle, excuse me, and the reticle works for you, it's very nice. I'd be looking at Zero Comp, Tangent Theta in March. Probably no particular order. I use Tangent in March, but a lot of it comes down to the reticles. Zero Compromise has nice reticles, but the way I shoot is slightly different, so Tangent and March do a little bit better for me. But it's a little bit of an unfair comparison because I did the reticles in this March scope that I showed, the FML TR1 and FML3. I designed those reticles for March, and I designed them for the way I like to shoot, right? So it is natural I will prefer those reticles and my reticles. But reticle is important, and on the high end, most scopes are very good. But yeah, on the high end, Tangent, March, Zero Compromise, go look at the features in the reticles and see which one works best for you. Okay. Very enlightening. Thank you. Exactly the reasons I'm looking for a small fixed 12 power. Yeah, I understand the reasons. I'm just not convinced you're going to easily get one. I'm not convinced the market for it is there, so there isn't really a good business case for someone to design one. But I hope they do, because if they would, I might be using it. Honestly, what I would really like is for somebody to make a really, really compact scope that's like a low variable zoom, right? Let's say 6 to 12 by 32, something like that, right? It sounds odd and sounds archaic, and there's no market for it. Nobody will ever do it unless I start an optics company and decide to do it. But a 6 to 12 combined with an offset of piggyback red dot, it can be made light and compact, and it would really kick ass as a scope for an accurate semi-auto. But me and 2 other people want it, and that's not a market. So I don't think we'll see that anytime soon. I would like to, though. All right, folks. All right, Mr. Slavgans woke up, looked out the window, and realized that it's daytime. Your Dracula lifestyle does not support you being awake during the day. I don't think you should be doing it. It's not good for you. You might get sunburn or something, And you're screwing with us all, sir. No, not with all, mostly just with you. No, that's so you missed the beginning of this, buddy. I got a bunch of comments and questions and requests from people in other time zones or who work in the evening to see if I can occasionally do something at a different time. And I had more than 20 people chiming in, so I think it'll work out reasonably well. I'm gonna try to stagger this with my regular live streams. Basically, do a regular live stream every 2 weeks, and do one of these midday for an hour. Well, that's a little bit longer than an hour and a half, in weeks in between, just as a Q&A and to accommodate people for whom my normal evening hours are not normal. Okay. At 6 to 12 sounds cool. Yeah, to me and to you and pretty much no one else, I think, I'm afraid. I was up since 7:30 since we got our puppy. Slav, I don't believe you. I want pictures. You'll have to specify what you're talking about. What angle? I don't have an angle. You've mentioned both the Burris 2-10 and the resurrected Trijik and Credo 2-10 designs favorably. I prefer the Trijik and Radical, and I'm curious if you have any thoughts comparing the two and why you like them. So I have not compared the two, and Burris 2-10 has been discontinued, so that's kind of a moot point. I like these kind of designs. For example, I have this guy here. This is a primary arms, 2.5 to 10 by 44. It's a Philippine-made scope. It's really nice. I'm very pleasantly surprised by it. I like these kind of designs because they're usually executed. They're usually executed well, and they're not very hard to do well on a budget. And for this application that Pro and Wolf and I were just discussing, where you don't need 1 power on a rifle scope, you can bump up the objective a little bit and have a good quality 2 to 10, and combined with an offset or piggyback red dot, you could have a really, really nice DMR type scope, basically something for precision semi-auto. Once you start going higher in magnification, what happens is that scopes start getting longer, not always heavy, but longer. Objective need to be a little bit bigger and all that. And I'm not convinced the application warrants it. I'm not a magnification hog. I'm comfortable oftentimes with lower magnifications. So that's why I like scopes like this. And I think the Trigigon is probably the best available, best of the breed on the market right now, and also the most expensive of the type. And I'm exploring a few other options to see what else is out there. I was literally thinking today, 3-fold 6, 12, 18. If you make them, I'm sure a few people would buy after they figure it out. Probably not enough. But the compact 6 to 18 would also work well, but that starts getting a little bit harder to make as you go up in magnification. Camera angle. Okay, that makes sense. It's the same camera angle, it's different lighting. But thank you. Does this make me look slim? No. Okay. All right. ELR. Are we getting into Rex terms now? You traitor, I should make you drink a bottle of vodka, but it's daytime, so no refreshments for you. Okay. ELR has nothing to do with Rex. I don't drink vodka, and it is daytime, and I'm not going to get hammered. So you can go have a drink if you want, or chime in tomorrow evening. I'm going to have a drink during that one. All right, Slav Guns, thank you for watching out for me, but you are right. At the moment, there are 18 people watching on YouTube, 4 on Facebook, and very few thumbs up. Did not notice the window in the background before. That's what it is, I think. But yeah, you look good. Man, you've been drinking. That might have been the Wu flu vaccine. It's not even that. So I've got this sheep hunt in 2 weeks. So since January, I dropped 30 pounds. Now, I'm big and fat. On my scale, 30 pounds is basically skipping 2 dinners. But still, I feel light on my feet, which is nice. Okay, wear black and less contrasty lighting. Okay, I'm not trying to make myself look pretty, but I will try. Thank you. I don't have that many different lights, so I'll just use what I have. I'm in a Facebook jail, so watching on YouTube. So generally speaking, my website is on a place called locals.com. It's darklordofoptics.locals.com. And they are going to enable live casting functionality soon enough, I think. And once they do, I'm going to start doing more live casts there, because I'm a gun writer, and on YouTube and Facebook, I cannot show a gun in a picture, which annoys the hell out of me. So for a lot of stuff, I don't know how I'm gonna stay on YouTube and Facebook for as long as I can, but if I want to show a gun, that's going to be on other platforms. Did you get a chance to play with the Leupold Delta Point Micro yet? No, they promised to send me one, and I apologize profusely, said they ran out something. I don't know. We'll see. I always join these late and try to catch up on high speed, so I'm always late. Thank you. Well, sorry, there was an announcement, but algorithms being what they are, I'm not convinced. I don't know who gets the announcements, who doesn't. Hard to say. Well, that's why I usually drink. It gives me this healthy red color. No, I haven't, jackass. Back to the March F, 42 millimeter. This is 52 millimeter. What would you put on your sheep gun? 52 millimeter. I have a good amount of mileage with both 42 and 52. 52 is a better scope, and it's only a couple ounces heavier, so that's what I use. With March 3 to 24 by 42, and 3 to 24 by 52. 52 to me looks like a significantly improved scope. Okay, all right, guys. I'm over my original planned 4 hours, so I think we need to wrap this up. I'll take a couple more questions, and okay, I have a couple more questions, and then I'll have to wrap this up. I do have my day job to deal with. Any thoughts on the Savage Impulse, the straight pull? So I'm wrapping up with an article on it. To get my exact thoughts, we'll probably have to buy the magazine. It's going to be in a precision rifle shooter, I think. I will say this. I sent it off a week or so ago back to Savage. I did not want to. I begged them to let me buy the rifle. They said they have very few of these so far. I had the Predator Impulse with the ICS magazine in 6.5 Creedmoor. I begged them to let me buy the rifle. They wouldn't, because it needed to go somewhere else. I got my name on the list. As soon as they have the first normal production run, I'm buying one. I really like that gun. Working on building a FAL, your opinions on it? I don't have a ton of experience with a FAL. I've shot it. It seems like a nice enough gun, but this is outside my expertise. I can try to bring somebody in who knows more about FALs than I do, but I'm not terribly helpful with that. What is your opinion concerning Hawk optics, such as the Frontier FFP 5-25? This sold here in Germany around $1,000. An alternative would be Meopta Optica 6. I like the Frontier. It's a nice scope. I haven't spent a huge amount of time with it, but I looked at it. It seemed very competent. It probably is a solid competition to the Optica 6. So I'm partial to the Optica 6 5-30 by 56, partly because, once again, it has my reticle in it, so it works well for me. But optomechanically, there was nothing wrong with the Frontier, and I think it competes with Optica 6 quite nicely. In that approximate range, you should be also looking at Delta Javelin, which is quite nice, and Athlon Ares ETR, which is quite nice. That would be the competition, I think. Thanks for everything. You're very welcome, Jamie. And the spelling police is here. It's F-A-L. No, it's a foul. 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 I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's a nice gun. How was the bolt pull on the impulse loop difficult on the vids? So the bolt pull on straight pull actions takes a little bit of getting used to, because what happens is when you first pull on it, the handle kind of clocks a little bit and then the bolt starts moving. And people who are used to normal turn bolt actions always struggle with it in the beginning. I have a good amount of mileage with other straight pull guns. So for me, it worked very well. But like with any bolt action rifle, don't baby the bolt, right? When you want to cycle, just rip the damn thing and it moves. So I liked it. For me, it worked really well. It's fail. And Mr. Slavguns agrees that F-A-L, foul, is a fail. I don't know. The one I shot was quite nice, but once again, this is not something I know a huge amount about. All right, guys, I'm 15 minutes over. I have to go back to work. I really appreciate all of you who have chimed in. If you need to get a hold of me in between these, the easiest way is to go on my website, darklordofoptics.com. I'll put a link in the description of the video. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Also, keep in mind, as questions come in, I sort of look through them and try to be prepared for the next Q&A. So I have something to cover as you guys are gearing up. Thank you all, and you have a good day. Chime in tomorrow evening for a more focused livecast. See you all later.